react. You whisper in my name, thinking I won't be the same. Turn fiction into fact. See what you didn't know, bruises that I'll never show, slipping on your every jab. So tighten up your fist, step into the ring with this. I hope your mama's got your back. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You did a bust. Oh, 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 oh. You did a bust. Oh, 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 oh. Just 'cause I took a break, you're making a huge mistake, thinking you can take the throne. Look at you trembling, step into the lion's den. Bet you wish you stayed at home, begging for mercy underneath your breath when I ain't even sweating yet. My legend's written in the stone, yeah. You're crying age in defeat is now your only friend. Even your mama's gotta know. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You did a bust. Oh, 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 oh. You did a bust. Oh, 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 First round, fifth round, final round. Oh, yeah. First round, fifth round, final round. No, 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 no. First round, you thought you would've knocked me down. Fifth round, bleeding out the side of your mouth. Final round, holding the sound of my name in the crowd. You did a bust. Oh, 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 oh. You did a bust. Oh, 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 oh,
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What do you think? There's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too, and I'm all for it because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
everyone. Welcome to In Time. With us today is Commander Lance McMillan, and hopefully at some point as well, Isandring. Once again, I did speak to him today, but we'll see if we can snag him. He's been busy. Commander, how are you?
I'm waiting for my pay to clear before I pop in.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I guess we got to get you at least get the thing in there. All right. Good. Everybody's here. Well, welcome all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on In Time. It looks like we're going to have to. We're also a little disorganized. It's been a little bit of a difficult day. Obviously, there was the Florida shooting. Right now, I think what we're gonna cover, and it's one of those things. There's discussion. We're going to learn more about that as time progresses. Today's show, I wanted to continue what we had been talking about yesterday, but actually do it with our guests. Now, I had said to Isandring a while back that of all the things Trump has done ever, and he's done a lot of things that scare the living daylights out of me, saying that he was willing to use rendition to get American citizens out of the country, ostensibly without due process, and put them in prison in other countries, was probably the scariest thing I had ever heard him say. What are your thoughts, either of you two, on that?
I would add that there's another element that associated with it makes it even more concerning, which is that at least some of the people that are being rounded up are being rounded up not by actual federal officers, but by what are effectively non-credentialed, non-deputized thugs. There was a case recently of a guy who was waiting outside a center because he was told to report, and a person, with a uniform, smashed his window in and dragged him out of the car, and it was caught on film by his wife, who was in the car with him, and some other bystanders. And they said, "Who is the guy that did this? We want to make sure he's reported." And they found out he isn't a federal employee. He's a member of Oath Keepers.
Wow. I did see that. We've got the video. We do have the video of that on the Discord. I did not realize he was Oath Keepers. I do know that now 4 out of 5 ATF officers have been retasked to immigration, and so it's ATF that's doing a good deal of this. It's also they're employing tactics that have been barred at the federal level already, including but not limited to the well, let's here we go. This was a woman. She was born in the United States. Do I have the let me get the bio on her real quick. Well, I'll have to get the bio in a minute, but she was born in the U.S. She does have a thick accent. Her parents taught her Mayan growing up, and she was in the back seat of a car that was stopped for speeding. The car was, in fact, speeding. They looked at the color of her skin and decided that they should do a background check. Now, this is similar to the Arizona SB, whatever it was, SB 170, I think it was, where they were basically saying that, the color of someone's skin could potentially be, and they try to work in language to avoid saying that, but really the idea was if you had any cause whatsoever, including skin, you could detain someone until they could produce proof that they were born in the United States. This woman not only was able to produce
unless you deport them first, then they don't have time to get that. So
yes,
once they're in once they're in the foreign prison system, it's not our problem anymore. We can't be asked to, interfere with a foreign government managing their prisoners.
Yeah, that's what makes this so scary. And while they have been ordered to give enough time for due process, first of all, they've only been ordered to give the time. They've not been ordered to give the due process. And there is a distinction between that. They are now giving 24 hours. The problem is 24 hours probably isn't enough time, but they're also not letting you call anyone during that 24 hours. So how are you going to call a lawyer or call your family or do anything? So they're like, well, we're giving them the time. We're giving them 24 hours. Yes, 24 hours in prison without any due process before they're being deported.
There's also situations where almost as soon as they're taken into custody, they're whisked off to another state, another part of the country, so that they're away from any family or friend support. So nobody's able to intervene before they decide to move to, deport them.
And I think, okay, so we got
all we're missing is the rail cars going under the sign that says "Work makes freedom."
And didn't Germany declare that the camps, what is it, Auschwitz and the other didn't Germany say that those actually were not officially German land, and they actually created a special zone so that none of the laws applied, if I understand correctly? And that's now essentially what we're doing, is we're not creating the zone. Well, we are. We've created. So the Pentagon has spent 337 million since January 20th. On the border, just on the border. There's 2 warships, there's spy planes, and now there's 10,000 troops on this 60-foot strip that's several thousand miles long and 60 feet wide, all to stop the threat of deportation. Meanwhile, members of, and this is pretty funny, the Defense Department Defense Department, I forget what the S stood for, but DDS. It is a Defense Department. They
Security?
basically, but it was cyber security, so it was maybe, but cyber would be a C. But it was the Pentagon's leading edge counter electronic and cyber terrorist unit. So they basically said that these are the sort of military grade nerds, and they have all been told that they need to either resign or will all be fired within 90 days. A number have already resigned.
Well, of course. I mean, these are the people that might be able to establish obvious links between the administration and hostile foreign governments. We can't have that happen.
Yeah. So, Isandring, any thoughts so far on either the actually, before we do that, let me get on to, because I started speaking about this woman. She was in the back seat. She got taken to court. While she was in court, she was able to demonstrate that she was an American citizen. Her mother brought in her Social Security card and her birth certificate. However, during that time, ICE had put a hold on her. So the judge said, all right, at this point, I find there is no probable cause to hold you. Having said that, I do not have the authority to release you because you are on hold by ICE. Despite the fact the judge had now determined that she was an American citizen, this woman is still going to be handed over to ICE. Let's see if I can. Is this? I want to bring this up because I think. Yeah, let's take a look at this here. I want to start. No, I'm going to start with her. And let's see.
I'm here in the Leon County Courthouse where we just got done with the first appearance of Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez, who was detained Wednesday in Florida, and he had charges of entering the state as an unauthorized immigrant. However, he is an American citizen. His mother came to the courthouse, showed his birth certificate and his social security number card, and that still wasn't enough to get him released. The judge just said that she was sorry, and the attorney working for the state said that because he had an ICE hold, he couldn't be released, even if the court didn't find probable cause for his arrest.
So he is now going to be held at least until Monday, until ICE can get and take a look at him, despite the fact that they now know he is an American citizen. It is also written into the report, strangely, from the arresting officer, who again, he was in the backseat of a car. The car was speeding. It was a legit stop. But he had done nothing wrong. He was in the back, and the guy just suspected that he wasn't an American citizen, and then pulled him out, and they actually had to have the hearing. Hearing worked. Everything's fine. They produced the paperwork. Again, he was guilty until proven innocent. They were able to prove he was born in the U.S., but they still haven't released him. But the arresting officer has in the report that he admitted he was in the country illegally. Why on earth would he say that? By the way, most people who are in the country illegally wouldn't admit it either, but let alone if he was here legally, if he was a U.S. citizen. So this happened in Florida, not even Texas, and they're willing to make up evidence because this could be used in court against him. Was, well, didn't you tell the officer that you were here illegally? No, I never said that. Everyone's going to believe the officer.
Falsified testimony or perjury, creating false. I mean, to my thinking, what really needs to be done is to start actively prosecuting level people that are doing this stuff. Because we know that the people at the top are well protected by the Orange God King, but those at the lower levels aren't. And if you start throwing them in jail with the people that they're victimizing, there's a good chance that they may regret their decisions.
Well, I think that's why it's going to get even harder to identify. I mean, we were never able to identify who was behind the original pickups in Portland, Oregon, when they were picking up the Black Lives Matter people, and the mommy vans would come up and ostensibly police officers, but no identifying information. They said they were police officers. They were in military uniform, and they went before courts that had no records. That was terrifying enough. I'm going to play these two clips, and then I want to get Isandring in on this, but we have actually literally just breaking news as of a few minutes ago. Maryland Senator Van Hollen, who has been in El Salvador. He's been in El Salvador protesting the detainment of Abrego Garcia. Apparently now he has actually been able to meet with Garcia, and he has, so Garcia is alive, which I'm very glad to hear, a little surprised, but very glad to hear.
Yeah, they both.
Yeah, that's I was not expecting that. They are still trying to get him out. The U.S., obviously, there's Trump. Well, I'll get into it because we have the piece here. We'll get into Garcia in a minute, but that's breaking now is that the U.S. Senator, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen has now, in fact, met with him. He is alive and all right. This is, once again, and we played it at the beginning because it's important. I want to make sure that the volume is up. It should be a bit louder on it this time if you didn't hear it. But this was important. A reporter asked Trump, will you entertain keeping U.S. rendering U.S. citizens to these prisons. Now, one of the things that he said, I think it's in this version. I didn't catch it in the last one. Let's see if it's in this version or not. So let's hear what he has to say.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
All right, we discussed this before. There's still a difference between, quote, the ones coming in and the ones born here, which is the ones born here are American citizens, and ostensibly the Constitution protects them. He did say we're studying it, so we don't know if we're going to do it yet. He's open to the idea. There was what ostensibly appears to be a hot mic incident. It has been confirmed. It's choppy. It's very hard to hear. We will do our best to play it, but it was right before what you just saw. It was as they were preparing for the interview that you just saw. Let's play that clip.
The people wanted to change his weapons, and they don't want it. He demanded they want to be in love with you. I'm not for support. I want him to, homegrown criminals next. I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrown. Still, you got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right. It's not big enough. No, yeah, come on. So this is a much different.
All right, I think the video didn't go through there. Apologies for that, but you can hear him say, you got to build 5 more prisons. He's already decided we are sending the homegrown prisoners. And he said, you got to have space, and he just said, oh, we've got space. So, Isandring, you had mentioned that before, did you not?
Yeah, back when we were originally talking about the sending of the people, when they sent the first plane loads over there, that the incentive structures were set up in such a way that you can send as many people there as you want. They're like, oh, well, there's a limit to how many prisons or how many people we could send to this place. And I'm like, okay, looking at the history of El Salvador, no, there isn't, because they will quietly get rid of people to make more room for new people. And they're going to continue to get paid for all of these people that they take in. There's zero incentive to try and house them properly or correctly. They're outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. So if they just disappear, well, we don't have the authority, unless you're talking about invading El Salvador. We don't have the authority to go in there and check to make sure the people are there being taken care of, or if they're quietly shuffled out the back. And they could either be going in bags or just literally be flushed out into the wild and said, here you go, so survive on your own. So yeah, that's pretty ominous, especially when his response is, no, we don't need to expand anything. We don't need to build more prisons. He's like, no, really, we're thinking about sending you a hell of a lot of people. It's like, wink, wink, nod, nod. No, you don't. It's like that's
studying the situation. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, no, they don't have to, and that's what's one of the most frightening things about the entire thing is, besides the fact that they're violating, like I would say, the most central pillar of the foundation of our republic, and definitely our legal system, was that the government isn't allowed to do things to you without due process, and that you have the ability to redress your grievances to the government for any violations, etc. Well, this is completely tearing that apart. It's flushing it completely down the drain. And they're grounding up people and just making claims against them, and then they disappear for a while, and then suddenly they're on a plane to El Salvador. It's like as soon as they walk off that plane, or essentially as soon as the plane lands on the ground in El Salvador, we no longer have any kind of jurisdiction over them. We have no say over any of them. So what happens if you round up some people that aren't supposed to be there, and you just make the claim? You don't have to justify it, and you send them there. Well, they could be disappeared forever. There happens to be media coverage around Garcia. Well, how many other people aren't supposed to be there who are all actually American citizens that they rounded up and sent off, and they weren't given the opportunity to prove? I hate that they have to prove that you're a U.S. citizen. I mean, we're turning into, produce your papers. It's like, no, the onus is on the government to prove that you've done something wrong first. That's why we have the entire judicial system we have, the founding principle of innocent until proven guilty, and it's completely being shredded. And they're using it against, very violent people right now that nobody likes. I've seen lots of responses to this is like, oh, these are the people that you're going to try and defend. This person beat an elderly woman over the head with a baseball bat, and you're really going to defend that person. And I'm like, no, I'm not defending that person. I'm not defending their actions. I'm defending due process, because this is something the citizens of a country should never, ever allow a government to do. And the fact that you have people like the coming up from the oath keepers,
yeah,
it's like these are the very people who are supposed to be standing in protection of the Constitution, against governmental tyranny. People laughed at me and thought I was crazy. Do you really think the government could turn tyrannical?
I was one of them, by the way.
Past tense, dude. Past tense.
Yeah. And so it's like shocking. And the fact that the very people who were always talking about, we need to be vigilant for government overreach, government tyranny forming, are the very people who are perfectly happy and cheering on and making excuses for shredding one of the largest founding pillars of our republic, to stop the government from being able to do anything to you without due process. The burden is on the government to prove that this is necessary.
Well,
and in criminal cases, beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, the other part that I think is interesting is they're crowing about how great an idea is, and yeah, we're getting rid of the bad guys and everything. And none of them take the millisecond it would require to think, how long until they bend that rule to where I am the guy being deported?
I realize that some people are thinking, the MAGA is going to be in charge of the government forever now. There's still the ability for Democrats to become in control. If Kamala Harris was doing these exact same things, or had Joe Biden done these exact same things, I would still be screaming about this, just as I'm screaming about it now. And it's incredibly disheartening to talk to people who are diehard MAGA, who look me dead in the eye and say, I don't care.
Yeah.
I point out that this is not a power that you want your federal government to have. They're going to use it. I mentioned this when we did the Pinochet episode about what was going on in Portland.
Yep.
That they normalize this kind of behavior by using it against the people or groups that are hated by almost everybody. Of course we're going to do it for these guys. These guys are really bad, horrible, horrible people. Except now, and everybody cheers. Yes, let's finally, law and order, get rid of these people. They're bad for society. Yep. We don't care that you're shredding the Constitution to do this. We want them gone, because it appears, especially after 2020, that the other side isn't particularly interested in law and order. They're letting people out. You're having flash mobs breaking into stores and stealing a bunch of shit, and they're just let out an hour later, if they're caught at all, or if they even look for them. So I'm now seeing people where I no, look at the steps here. This is not a power you ever want your government to have. They should never be able to round up people, especially with anonymous people, disappear them for 24 hours, stick them on a plane, and through extraordinary rendition, send them someplace else out of our jurisdiction. It's like, how can you possibly? And they look right at me and they're like, I don't care. He's cleaning house. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to what I was saying. It goes back to what I was saying. They can't, for the life of themselves, envision a scenario where they are the potential victims. The only reason they're willing to say and believe in the kind of stuff is because they're automatically assuming they're the ones at the top of the dog pile. And they don't understand that that is not a given. That when the situation changes, they're just as likely to face this kind of thing because the precedent is being set.
Yeah, and then it doesn't seem like they're capable of any kind of abstract thinking at all to say, hey, wait a minute, how do you think any of these dictatorships actually started? What do you think that they did? Do you even know who Pinochet is? Do you know how he rose to power? Do you know all of the steps that he took? That's kind of an important thing. And of course, most people don't. And I'm like, what's going to happen when you grant this much power to the federal authority? And now you go, oh, wait a minute. You just went after a group that I don't think you should have. This is a little troubling. And you say something about it. Well, guess what? Now you're going to be sent off.
You're at the top of the hit parade, Bubba.
Yeah. It's like you're allowing this to happen. And a matter of fact, cheering it on and then looking me dead in the eye when I point this out, saying, wait a minute, I've got a huge problem with these things that are going on. At least some of the other shit, like with Doge or something, I can go, okay, I can understand. I happen to agree with Rand Paul on this. It's like, I can understand your goal and I can actually agree with it. I don't agree with the way you're going about doing this, but I can at least agree with that. And in this particular case, I can agree with, at least in principle, sealing our southern border, securing it so that we don't have a lot of people, but you also need to put some effort into things like visa overstays, which are way more of a problem than people crossing the southern border. But that's the one that's been sensationalized. It's like, yeah, I can understand sealing it and getting good control of our borders. I thought we should do that all of the time. Then we need to actually have a realistic discussion about what to do about people that are here that crossed illegally. Because it's not feasible to try and go after, 15 million people? The power that the government would need to do to affect that in any kind of time is frightening, and they're grabbing it upon themselves right now. And I get people that look right at me and just say, I don't care. He's finally taking control. And I'm like, yeah, he's taking control right up to the point that you will have zero liberties. You will no longer have any civil rights. You will no longer have protections from the government. The government need only make the accusation, and you're fucked.
I'd like to point out, and I'm gonna yes, please.
No, I was going to say the other thing. These are people who are so woefully ignorant of history because you look at every other authoritarian movement, and at some point you get the equivalent of the Night of the Long Knives, where they purge their own to make sure that whoever it is that ends up in charge has no rivals. And that's coming soon. Because as bad as things are starting to get, and then the noise that's rising up from the masses, you're seeing people in the GOP already starting to say, no, this is wrong. We've got to make sure he gets back under control and everything. In not too distant future, he's going to say, okay, those are my number one target. They're more of a threat than the lefties.
Yep.
And he will eliminate them, and he will be brutal about it when he does so.
A perfect time. If this is the clip, I think it is. Let's give this a shot here.
There's one line that divides us. Do you love America or do you hate America? It's really quite that simple. And we have people who love America, like the president, like his cabinet, like the directors of his agencies, who want to protect Americans. And then there is the other side that is on the side of the cartel members, on the side of the illegal aliens, on the side.
This is the exact argumentation that I was just talking about. Where they're like, I can't believe that.
Do you love America or do you hate?
Well, hold on. Sorry, I want to play the rest of the clip, and for some reason the sound cut out when
the president, like his cabinet,
I wanted to finish.
Terrorists, and you have to ask yourself, are they technically aiding and abetting them? Because aiding and abetting criminals and terrorists is a crime in federal statute, Rob.
All right, I wanted. So we lost part of the sound, but I want to play that clip again because it's you're right, as Henry. The reason I played this was it was already what you were talking about. But that second part, he's talking about the left. He's talking about anyone who disagrees with them.
Side of the cartel members, on the side of the illegal aliens, on the side of the terrorists, and you have to ask yourself, are they technically aiding and abetting them? Because aiding and abetting criminals and terrorists is a crime in federal statute. Rob.
That is a cabinet member. That's Ken Kaplan, or Kipperstein, who is Trump's counterterrorism czar, saying that essentially disagreeing with his position, and this gets
means you're a terrorist.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you're aiding and abetting terrorists.
Yeah, let's cut to the essentials. If you don't agree 100% with what the MAGAs are doing, you are an enemy of the state and should be eliminated. That's the whole foundation of their argument right now.
Yeah, and to try and come after me to say, oh, well, it's really, and in such a snarky way too. This is irritated me with when Christians do it, when other atheists do it, in any kind of debating whatsoever. This is 100% pure snark, and as soon as somebody tries to do this, it becomes immediately apparent that they aren't interested in having any kind of debate whatsoever. They're just there to try and make you look bad or make themselves look good. And because you have that little, it's that smarmy,
bully you into
sarcastic.
silence.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, weird flex to be, standing up for these horrible, horrible people. But I guess we know where your loyalties are. It's like, I'm not standing up for this particular individual because this particular individual may be a horrendous human being who I think maybe should have stood, for the death penalty for some of the stuff that they did. I'm absolutely not standing up for them. What I'm standing up for is the process, because you just went through and violated so many damn things. And it's like, and I don't want you to turn around and do that to me.
Yeah.
All right.
You should never allow. How many times have I said you should never allow your own side to take on powers that you would not be comfortable with your worst opposition also having.
So it's rare. It is very rare that we have breaking news and it gets to be something good. Thank you very much. I think Andre pointed this out and Titan passed it on, so thank you both. It's rare. We do have some breaking news. El Salvador would not return him, but they would release him. And so tonight we can confirm that Abrego Garcia has been released from prison and has met with with Senator Van Hollen in El Salvador. He is in El Salvador, but he is a free man. He is out of prison. We had played a clip yesterday from Senator Van Hollen saying that he had promised Garcia's wife that he would stay there until he had done absolutely everything humanly possible to get the man out of prison. He is now out. I, for one, hope that this is something that starts a movement, that he has the charisma and is interested in.
Have you seen
fighting.
the Have you seen the clip of Grassley's town hall?
I have not.
He's sitting there being yelled at by the people in the crowd, and they're almost entirely conservative slant MAGA types. And they're yelling at him about, why are you allowing the administration to do this to an American citizen, to, Garcia, which I was surprised that they would voice that. But it shows, I think, that at least some of the people on the right are beginning to wake up to the danger that this administration and its policies really pose.
That's encouraging, because all of the people who I have talked to, the trucking industry is overwhelmingly conservative. There are a hell of a lot of people that are Trump supporters in the trucking industry. And when I talked to them, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably all ignorant of what's actually going on. They're listening to Fox News while they're driving down, and they're getting the spin in their echo chamber of how this is a good thing, and they're not actually violating the law, and how these activist judges, because that's been a claim from the right for quite a long time, is activist judges, and there is a problem with that, but I don't believe it's nearly as big as they're claiming. And so when I talk to them, they have become incredibly callous. Like, they just don't give a shit. They're like, no, we're taking our damn country back. I watched it fall apart. We're allowing all the Democrats are just allowing all this, crappy stuff to happen, to where now I feel like I need to be armed in my own truck just to make deliveries, so I don't get swarmed by people trying to steal all the shit out of my truck and killing me, even though I'd let them have it. I mean, it's like they've become, they have hardened their hearts. They don't care anymore. They don't care. They see somebody who's taking action to try and clean things up, and that's all they see. They have not extrapolated out the kinds of power that they are exercising, and where that could go horribly wrong. And this was the exact thing that I pointed out.
It's not even that, Isandring. It's not even that. They're extrapolating that the people that are having this done to them are the bad guys, when it's apparent that significant numbers of the people that are having this done to them are not necessarily these horrible bad guys that they're so frightened of. They're just people who, unfortunately, are in the country illegally. They've never done anything illegal other than that. They pay their taxes, they work hard, but no, they're from that group. We have to victimize that group.
Yeah, and this was one of the things I pointed out how many times? How many times I pointed this out after we did the Pinochet, when he started disappearing people, that I kept bringing, and I continue to keep bringing that up, because that was the single most disturbing thing that Trump did in his first term of office. And I came out very ranty then too. It's like, no, you do not allow your government to do this. Period. End of the story. Where are the dang protests? This is something you should be calling all of your representatives and say, this is not okay. The government cannot be allowed to do this. The federal government cannot be allowed to do this. That is the very definition of tyranny. Do you want to have a popular, or not a populist, a citizen uprising against a tyrannical government? There were several founders that believed, hey, if the government started doing shit like that, it was a duty of the population to literally dispatch them with prejudice and replace them with a different government. There's no voting and shit like that. We're going to go eliminate all of these people. That was exactly what the founders thought should happen if the government became tyrannical, just like this.
Yeah.
It's like we said this back in 2019.
Been stockpiling arms and ammo for decades and decades because the government was going to get them. And here the government is getting people, and they aren't
cheering
giving
it.
They're
cheering it, and they're trying to defend it, and they're attacking people that say, hey, wait,
you have to be willfully ignorant to be that way.
We should bring somebody on to do the psychology of what it takes to be there. I want to bring this up just because and then I'm going to dovetail this into a point everybody's made now, by at least once by this point. But this was from Timothy Snyder. On the White House's theory, if they abduct you, you get on a helicopter, get into international waters. Now, this was the jurisdiction thing we talked about. They can shoot you in the head and drop your corpse in the ocean, and it's legal because it's the conduct of foreign affairs. The entire practice of the Holocaust and of the Jews involves zones of statelessness. It's easier to move people away from the law than it is to remove the law from the people. Almost all of the killing took place in artificially created stateless zones. If we accept the idea that moving a person from one place to another undoes rights and disempowers the judiciary, we are endorsing the basic Nazism practice that enabled the killing of millions. Now, not only that, I'd like to point out, getting to what you had said earlier about everybody thinks they're not going to be in that group. We've said this before, say it again for those of you who are new or who maybe don't know. When Hitler first started, and he was invading Czechoslovakia, he had secret plans with Stalin, with Russia, with the Soviet Union, I should say, to invade Poland, split that up, and split up the world. Stalin thought this was great, and Stalin was so enamored of Hitler that when Hitler betrayed him and then invaded the Soviet Union, it took him 2 weeks to get his head around it and stop drinking and come out of his office and start issuing orders. He really thought that he and Hitler were, right there. And both of them were basically psychopathic killers. And somehow one of them very clearly got the wool over the eyes of the other. So if you think that you're not going to be fooled and that you're not going to be, and the interesting thing that people don't often talk about when they talk about Nazi Germany is that they were adding a fourth block to Auschwitz when Germany fell. Auschwitz was also built out of brick and mortar. It was a permanent installation. It would have been much easier to make these as temporary installations, and they had enough that when they were all operating at full capacity, they could have eliminated all of the Jews from Germany in about 6 months and all of the Jews from Europe in 2 years, those that didn't flee. So why were they permanent, and why were they expanding them? The only possible answer is they weren't going to stop with the Jews. They were probably going for the Slavics next. They were going to be taking the Russians, the very allies that they had at the beginning of this, and had they not betrayed, World War II may have turned out very differently. Commander, I know you know this history, so is there anything you want to add that I've overlooked?
Yeah. No, I think you've said what is true. The one thing I would say from the stuff you were reading earlier, the reason that they're not going to just fly you out to international waters, shoot you, and dump your body in the water is because you don't get the kickback for delivering prisoners that you're sending to a foreign country from the people in that foreign country. And I guarantee you that's going on.
Well,
so
and
the Salvadoran president or the government or whoever's in charge of prison bureaus getting all this money from the U.S. to handle these prisoners, I guarantee you some of that's going back to Trump's pocket as a kickback.
Hadn't considered that. I have zero doubt in my mind you're right. And I mean, Trump is always looking to find ways to funnel money into his own pocket from one source, and that's his MO. That's the
only reason he wants to be in this office, is because he knows he can steal the country blind and not be held accountable for it.
So
money is his god.
Again, it makes no difference if the people. This is the part that is. Well, there's a lot of this that's sad, but I guess the part that I look at it and is sad is Trump can't fathom that Garcia is a human being. I mean, I don't know if Trump fathoms any human beings outside of perhaps his daughter. Certainly not his wife. Certainly, I'm not sure the other kids either. They're tools to an end. So you've got this guy who is fully aware Actually, not yet, because he's not smart enough to have figured out what. But I think that clip is really clear what the president of El Salvador was saying. Don't worry about the space. We got it covered. And it's a lot cheaper to just kill the people than to build more prisons. So.
We're good, Donnie. We're good. You just keep sending me the money. We're good.
It was,
and you don't have to spend any of that money to like actually do things like feed them or provide any kind of medical care or anything like that. That would cut into your profit margin.
That's such a waste.
And at least some of that's going to go right back into Trump's pocket. I also like how he was just like, oh, we're also looking at others, just to, as if he's fooling the president of El Salvador into thinking that there's other bidders for this, and he's made up his mind. He's sending them to El Salvador. But it's just, oh my God, the guy is just, oh dear Lord.
The others is part of the bargaining chip to extort more of the kickback. Yep.
You don't want me to go to these fictional others, do you? So, yeah, it's. And that conversation could happen in the White House, in front of the press corps, such that somebody snagged it on their phone or on oh my God.
He doesn't care. As he said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not be held accountable for it. Yep. He's convinced he can do whatever he wants now that he's been put in office, and he will never be held accountable for
it. So let's see, Judge Sweeney in Colorado.
And the fact that he's basically flipped the bird at the Supreme Court lets you know that that's pretty much true. You can't touch me.
Yeah. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with Garcia. Let's actually hit some super chats because we haven't done that. $20 from Dunk on You, barely awake. Here, 𝐒𝐸 Ukraini, Dunk on You. Once again, thank you very much for your continued support. You've always been a really big supporter, and it really does help. So I appreciate it, and I want to let you know that. Thank you, sir. Dunk on You also gifted 5 memberships and did another $20 super chat. Trump is a homegrown criminal, 34 felony counts. He's deportable and he's deportable and deplorable too. Yes, on both counts. I just wish we could figure out how to get him to El Salvador.
But he's a wealthy white male, so he can do no wrong. That's the way that the system is supposed to work.
Yeah, he can blow out the back window of an automobile with a tire iron, or I think the guy had a tire iron too. It looked like a mugging.
Yeah.
Again, it's right on the Discord. The guy tire iron just hits it out, and it's just like we don't like the color of your skin, so we think maybe you're not here legally, and now you're going to have to prove you are, or else you're going to be in El Salvador. Jack Smith, Tarkov Gamer, yo, 5 British pounds. Thank you once again, Jim Smith, for that. Jim Smith, new member, joining us. Thank you. It's very good to have you on board. UTV and Ham, $10, keeping the lights on. Yes, sir, very much so, and we do appreciate it. So, this one went under the radar, and I had talked about it earlier. I mention it only because it is a U.S. senator. It's the U.S. senator from Texas, of course, but it is still a U.S. senator, this was 2 weeks ago, I think. It was about 2 weeks ago, but is worth bringing up. So the fact that either he doesn't realize why he shouldn't be quoting who he's quoting or who this person is, or that he thinks it's okay. I don't even know where to begin. Let's play it.
I'm going to leave you, and I'll yield back a little bit of my time. A direct quote from Joseph Goebbels. It is the absolute right of the state to supervise the formation of public opinion, and I think that may be what we're discussing here, and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. With that, the representative from Texas, Ms. Johnson, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I want to respond to what my colleague from Texas just said. When you're quoting Joseph Goebbels about state, the role of state in public debate, we have a big problem. Isn't that right? I mean, that's alarming as hell to me when that becomes the gold standard of Hitler and all that was going on in Russia and in German atrocities during World War II, when that becomes the quote of this hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He got up and walked out.
I think it's only a 50-50 chance that he didn't realize who Joseph Goebbels was. I think he said that deliberately, knowing exactly what he was saying and what it meant.
Well, that would explain why he got out, because that was the other thing because when he yielded back his time, he got up and got out of there in a hurry. So maybe he knew what it meant. He didn't want to be part of the scene if one was
told to read that.
Interesting.
It isn't his own thinking. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm saying maybe that's what's going on. Because you find scared people were part of the party that, don't want to be primaried and have already been threatened by either the Orange God King or by the Muscovite, and they'll say or do whatever you want just to be able to remain at the feeding trough for another cycle.
Spider Fate.
How bad
please.
How bad does it have to be that? I mean, because there's a lot of other things going on too that we're not really hitting on. But how bad does it have to be that you hope that Trump bungles the whole tariff war issue, significant to cause a big enough economic crisis that there's a large populist uprising against the Trump regime? I mean, how bad is it that you're actually kind of hoping for that?
Am I? Yes.
Yeah, no, but I think it's what he's saying. I mean, how bad is it that this is? I mean, we've heard people talk about it, and on In Time we've been.
What you mean? Okay, now I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, how bad does it have to be that this is a common topic of discussion now? And I don't think it's anywhere near where it's going to get.
No, I think it's going to get a lot worse, and I think he knows that there's going to be pushback, and I think I won't go so far as to say he's running scared, but I think the people that put him where he is are starting to get nervous. And so they're accelerating the process so that it can't be undone.
Let me make a statement, and I'm sure there may be nuance that you can correct for me, either of you. But it seems to me one of the fundamental, there's a lot of problems with fascism, but the fundamental one is you always need an enemy. You always need an enemy.
Yep.
That's how it works. And if you're not getting rid of that enemy in some way, you're going to collapse. So you have to always be getting rid of those enemies. But as you do, you start at the bottom of the ladder and you start working up and up and up and up and up until the enemy is the one who pronounces MAGA the wrong way.
We can all agree that the guy who kills the 79-year-old lady with a baseball bat, he's bad. We want horrible things done to him. Everybody agrees. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Next week, we're going to work on the guy who simply stole her handbag and her money. And we're going to, and you just work your way up until people have gotten inured to it. And it's like, you're wearing, blue socks. We're going to deport you. We're going to what have you. For no reason.
Yeah, you have to normalize the use of it. Once it's normalized, you can expand it to whomever you wish.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are going to, or at least I'm going to say again, so we've been speaking with a couple of people who have suggested, we know for a fact that Trump has requested from the Departments of Homeland Security and Defense recommendations on whether or not he invokes the Insurrection Act.
Yep.
We believe I think all of us here believe that he wouldn't have asked that if he hadn't already told them what the answer was going to be, and they're going to, so it's a show. We know what the answer is going to be. Yes, you should absolutely do it, and that he's going to do it. We think it's going to be on or about the 20th. Can either of you tell me what the Insurrection Act is going to empower him to do?
Essentially, it's if they decide that you are causing a problem, they can arrest you. And it literally, okay, you're standing peaceably with other people on a street sidewalk holding a sign. You're obstructing traffic, you're interfering with commerce, boom, you're gone. You're a threat. And that's all it takes, because the statute is vague enough that it can be used however the administration wants to use it.
Well, no, because there's the judiciary that's going to provide oversight.
Yeah, sure.
Xander,
I'm not saying they won't try, but we've already seen repeatedly that they don't give a damn what the judiciary says. And in fact, how much longer is it going to be until judges that aren't on his side start being ruled as a national threat?
He already wants them impeached, and he got a harsh scolding for that. Roberts was having a banner day. Let's see. Oh, well, Anna had said brown eyes, then green eyes. Yeah, that was a fake. That was better than the example I've been thinking of. But yeah, it'll get to that point.
The Insurrection Act allows the president to deploy the United States to, suppress rebellion or acts of violence. I mean, federalize the state National Guards and federalize them under federal authority. And it allows them to suspend posse comitatus in most cases to enforce law.
And habeas corpus.
Yeah, it theoretically would authorize them to. I just forgot what I was going to say. I hate when that happens.
I've noticed I've been doing that a lot more recently, and I'm trying to figure out why. Now, part of it is, as we'd mentioned before, in time has moved. We've moved our physical location, and that move isn't quite done yet, but it took a lot out of me. But I'm realizing a lot of other people are this way too, and I think there is a mental weight that we are all carrying as we are now aware that this process is happening, and it's in the back of our minds. It's actually tiring to be aware of what's happening and how it's happening. Anyways, you were saying, Xander? Yep.
Yeah, and you have so many things are like going sideways. You start getting overwhelmed. It's like you've only got so much executive function, and when you get overwhelmed by things, now you're like, okay, I have all these problems, and I'm trying to formulate everything together because so much stuff is bombarding you. It's like you just completely lose your train of thought. You just get lost. But arguably, if he invokes the Insurrection Act, he could also declare martial law and change the law to whatever he wants it to be, and then use the military or the state, federalize the state National Guard, which is the closest thing to equivalency to the militia that we have today, in order to enforce the laws of the Union. So yeah, that's a
second closest. Second closest. Closest is the every one of the January 6th people that he pardoned. That's the militia. That's what he's going to call up.
Well, yeah, and if you go by extension to this Oath Keeper guy, who's being used as a semi-official agent of the government, I can easily see them saying anybody who's a proud red ball cap wearing American can do whatever he wants.
And who's already committed a crime in the name of defending Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
You've
even
proven your
killed an
loyalty.
officer, yeah. You get the
Yeah,
chevron.
Yeah, he'll just start saying, okay, these people are, the militia from the states. We're going to call them up and federalize them, and conveniently ignore that. I don't believe there was a single person in January 6th that was actually a member of a legitimate militia. The states have the authority to authorize, and they have to authorize militias. You have to
There
have
are
state
some
permission
states
to
that do have. There are some states that do have active militias.
Yeah, Washington State has one, but
Yeah.
you have to, in order to be commissioned into the Washington State militia, you actually have to get an order signed by the governor in order to commission you as a, and they don't do that. But there is an actual Washington State militia. The law's laid out there, and it's just the governor doesn't sign anybody up for it. So, and most of all of the states have that same kind of setup where it's like, in order to be an actual real militia in the eyes of the law, it has to be state sanctioned. So, but he's going to call up these people that are claiming to be a militia that aren't actually legitimate or legally lawfully empowered as a militia, a state militia.
Yeah.
And he's going to call them up because, those are the people that are going to be supporting him and say, yeah, we're throwing out all the trash. And it's like, that's a problem. Every state, not most of them, every state has traded their official militias for National Guard.
So let me ask.
No, there are states that do still have standing militias.
Which ones? Because I was unable to find any.
Virginia does. I know that because the instructors at Virginia Military Institute, when I was there, they are all members of the Virginia State Militia. And I know New York, for example, has a naval militia. They're one of two states that has a standing naval militia.
Yeah, it's the Virginia Defense Force, which is one of three components of Virginia's state military. The other two are the Virginia National Guard and the unorganized militia. Sort of like in time,
there are a number of states that still have active state militias as distinct from National Guard or Army Reserve.
Well, so that brings me to my final question.
Yeah.
We've been talking about a lot of very difficult things tonight. Harvard has stood up. I've seen some indications that they may, quote, negotiate a deal. Trump is all for that, and who knows? Now Harvard has a much larger endowment than the 2.2 billion that they're withholding. But having said that, Harvard's got a breaking point, and it's a strong institution. But if the full weight of the U.S. government comes down on it, so we'll see. But okay, Harvard has stood up. A few people have stood up. If Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, he'll probably do what he's been doing, which is say, I just need them for that. Look, I've only got 60 feet from the border, but you got to give me a little extra room here. He'll start there, but he's also
temporary.
Yeah, and he'll start deploying them in the cities, in the states, so on and so forth. Are any of the states then going to be put into a position where they have to decide, are they going to stand up and block or repel the federal government?
Yes. And I think he's hoping to do that. And I think he hopes to do that deliberately, because the moment any state governor stands up to him, then that state governor becomes an enemy of the state, not the state that he's governor of, but the national U.S. of A state. And he can then arrest, prosecute, detain, deport, whatever, those people who are his enemies.
And then we will have a truly classical civil war.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I cannot see a state allowing their governor to be arrested by the federal authorities simply because they stood up and said, no, this isn't legal, you can't do this. Now, the states have the right to do that.
Yep.
All right, well,
which is one of the reasons why I keep pointing out, get involved and get knowledgeable with who your state representatives are, your state legislatures. It's like you need to become intimately involved as quickly as possible with your state politics. because that's the only way you're going to save it. If he doesn't bungle something so badly that there's a large populist uprising to throw him out of office, to get him out of power, if that doesn't happen, then your state's the only thing you have left, and you're going to need them.
Yeah.
Well, and actually the fact that he's having to speed this up is a good sign, in as much as he's already going to do it as fast as he can. If he has to speed it up, that means taking more risks, and that means more likelihood that he's going to screw something up in such a way that he's going to get snagged on something. But it still doesn't mean I like our odds. It's just a thing. All right, so Isandring, any final thoughts before we go?
I'm a little in a little bit of regret for my flippant use of "may you live in interesting times." Turns out interesting times aren't so nice.
Thank you. That's why we barred you from ever saying it again. I feel vindicated. Yeah. I'll take boring times, please. Thank you. I'm
exactly.
All right. Thank you, Isandring. Commander, any final thoughts?
If you see the news or the late night talk shows and everything, they're talking about constitutional crisis. I think we're definitely there. I think this is not just a single incident. I think this is the entire process of what's going on right now as a crisis that this nation needs to realize is happening and needs to take action now before it's too late to stop. You know, his statement during the campaign that if you elect me, you'll never have to vote again. That should tell you what the intent is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you to the time travelers, our audience. Thank you for everyone who has hit that like button and shared this content, and who has given us a super chat or donated memberships. That all really helps. This is all still continuing on our Discord. I hope you will come down there and join us. And we will, like I said, we're resetting the schedule. We're still going to be open for breaking news. What schedule we have for downtime or just a regular in times, we'll get that sorted. We'll let people know on the Discord. And if you've hit the bell and subscribed to all notifications, you're going to maybe know anyway. YouTube is notorious for having a terrible notification system. But thank you all for joining us. Please do take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you all shortly. And to the Garcia family, be blessed, and I hope things get much better for you very quickly from here. Good night, all.
Yeah.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.